could bear it, and one club where things do seem to be happening. It's already busy for Spurs, isn't it? Timo Werner appears to be on his way from RB Leipzig on loan. Genoa defender Radu Drăgușin could also be on his way to North London. We've heard Eric Dyer to Bayern Munich. That might surprise a few. Jed Spence on his way to Genoa as part of the deal, perhaps for Drăgușin. It's all very complicated. Let's get Chris Cowlin's take on all this, the host of the Spurs Chat podcast. He's on the line now. Chris, hello.
Nick, good evening to you.
Great to have you on the programme, Chris. Thank you for your time. Have you been encouraged by the opening days of what we have to call the January 2024 transfer window?
Absolutely. This is about tweaks and changes and to improve this football club. We had an excellent window under Ange Postecoglou. Of course, his first window as Tottenham Hotspur head coach. It was an excellent window in the summer. We are expecting, a good few players to come in the door in this window to try and get us over the line to get Champions League football. But we've been entertained so far this season. I think it has been, Spurs have been the most entertaining team in the Premier League so far. Everyone looks out for Tottenham's games at the moment. But the transfer window, it is really, really important to try and offload a few players, get a few players in, make a few tweaks here and there, and just to get us over that line and get Champions League football back at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium next season, because, of course, no European football this season. But I am very much encouraged about this window. I think that the Timo Werner transfer, which is hopefully going to be announced in the very, very near future in the next 24 hours or so, I think it's a very interesting one. I don't think many Spurs fans would have chosen Timo Werner to come in, but I think it's going to be very, very clever business from the football club, because he can certainly come in, do a job. He's going to be very focused on getting game time at Tottenham. And, he wants to go to the Euros, and he knows the Premier League, albeit it wasn't as successful. Probably as successful as he wanted the spell at Chelsea, but he's been very successful at RB Leipzig. He's scored goals. We know that he can assist, and it's all about making small improvements to, as I say, get over that line, come the end of the season.
Do you think that Ange Postecoglou's hand has been strengthened given the way he's conducted himself as Tottenham manager in the opening 6 months, and perhaps he has a greater say in this window, given the kind of conduct we've seen, the football we've seen, and the general way that he has kind of made himself at home as Spurs manager when he wasn't first choice, as we know?
Nick, it has been incredible. This 6 months at Tottenham, every single week, the club improves on the pitch and off the pitch. It has been an incredible change. When you've gone from the type of football that we played under win-now managers, Jose Mourinho, Antonio Conte, I really thought as a Spurs fan that they would deliver a trophy at Tottenham Hotspur. Now, Ange Postecoglou has come in the summer. Again, he wasn't everyone's first choice. Some people even said, who is this guy coming in? He has transformed this football club. Every single Spurs fan now looks forward to the next game. Of course, we're not playing any European football, so those games do come a little bit longer, and we're all sitting there thinking, when are we playing next? Everyone has been entertained. It's been incredible. The fact that he is having so much say in these transfer windows is an absolute delight to see. I think the football club, has been heavily criticised by a number of fans in recent seasons and recent years, certainly since Mauricio Pochettino left the football club. But Antonio Conte said about the likes of Jed Spence, their club signings. Well, we're not going to have that anymore. Ange Postecoglou is having the final say. He is hand-picking players. What I love to hear is that he has these Zoom calls before we actually sign a player and get the contract done, because he wants to know what type of person they are. And it's all about, what person they are and what personality they have, and whether they want to win and whether they share the same goals and philosophy that Ange Postecoglou has. And I think that is great to see, and it is music to the ears of all of us fans. But I can't fault anything at the moment. And when you think back as well, even in the summer, we had games postponed, we had a game postponed in Thailand. It was a very, very difficult pre-season for Postecoglou. And every single week, he has had to overcome many difficulties. We've had suspensions, we've had lots of injuries, injuries galore this season. There's been an incredible amount of injuries. And when you think we're only a point away from top four, and we're only 6 points away from top spot, we're going extremely strong in the FA Cup in terms of the lineup, which is great to see again, which we haven't seen under multiple different managers in recent years. So It's all good at the moment. I've got a big smile on my face and I'm really enjoying it.
No, you can tell the enthusiasm just kind of exudes out of everyone at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium at the moment. I was going to ask you about the FA Cup because you can correct me here, Chris. I'll venture an opinion that perhaps Postecoglou's only mistake so far has been to go underpowered against Fulham in the League Cup. And then you thought, right, well, he's learnt his lesson in the FA Cup because he's gone stronger against Burnley, and now you've got Manchester City. So what's your take on the kind of cup disappointment so far? Because, I mean, it would be a heck of a job if you can get past City in the next round. And I don't know, I just think an Ange Postecoglou's Tottenham deserved a bit of a cup run, to be perfectly honest with you.
Absolutely. And when that lineup come out against Fulham back in August, being out of the League Cup in August, I was very upset about it. I'm probably more upset as a Spurs fan losing a cup game and going out of a cup competition than losing any league games, because I think that Spurs should always take the cup.
You are a proper
seriously.
Spurs fan, Chris. That's what you want to hear from a Tottenham supporter. That is the litmus test. Days out. It's about days out for Spurs.
We love the cup runs, and I think a lot of people were very disappointed with 10 changes. But when he described the reason why he did it, he wanted to see a number of players playing, and he wanted to test certain players. I do kind of understand it, but the FA Cup, I picked a team the other day, and it's exactly the team that Ange Postecoglou ended up putting out in the FA Cup, because it was our strongest possible 11, and that is an absolute delight to see. And we do want a cup run. We do want to lift the FA Cup. We lifted it last in 1991, which was a record 8th time at the time. It's nearly 33 years ago. It's unbelievable, that stat. So, we've got a tough tie. Manchester City at home, of course. You've got to beat the top teams in these competitions if you want to lift the trophy. But I'd love to see Spurs, go really strong in this competition and perhaps lift it in May.
And is there a bit of sadness when you hear that Eric Dyer, who's been such a big part of the recent history of the football club, might be on his way? I know he's not going to get in Postecoglou's team. That's pretty obvious. He'd rather play Emerson Royale at centre half. But he scored on his debut at West Ham. I remember that very well. Big part of the team for many years. Is there a tinge of sadness about his imminent departure?
Not on my part. I think that sometimes you have to be very ruthless and say, footballers sometimes need to move on at certain times, and that's the way it is in football. You've got to constantly keep refreshing the squad and bringing in better players. I think it was very evident, from day one when Postecoglou came in, that Eric Dyer wasn't going to fit into this system of playing such a high line. So it is time for him to move on. I wish him all of the very best. He's had a good career at Tottenham. Perhaps he should have left a year or two ago, but he's always been very much admired by previous managers. But Postecoglou playing this system, he's got to have his players in now. There's big changes. There has been major changes at the football club. Of course, Harry Kane left in the summer. Not many people talk about that when Spurs are scoring goals and doing well and winning games. But sometimes you need to offload certain players and bring new players in, new blood, refresh, and bring in Ange's players, and that's what we want to see.
Chris, great talking to you. Thanks ever so much indeed for your time. That is Chris Cowlin. He hosts the Spurs Chat podcast. He's a big Spurs YouTuber as well. We thank him for his time. And absolutely no emotion there about Eric Dyer. Yes, he's been a big part of various Tottenham teams over the years, but time to move on, says Chris. And as I said, I remember his debut. He scored the winner at West Ham in the early days of... In fact, it may have been Pochettino's first game in charge of the football club a number of years ago. But his time perhaps has come, and he might be off to Bayern Munich, would you believe? But Spurs rumble on. Timo Werner on his way, perhaps Drăgușin coming in as well. Chris seemed fairly confident about those two. Maybe Jed Spence going the other way as well. So it has already, in some ways, been a busy month, or few days of January for Tottenham, and there could be plenty more to come. They are just off the Champions League spots, as you said, despite all of those injuries. Mickey van der Ven coming back, James Maddison to return later in the year as well. It is a very, very interesting time indeed. Now it's 6:23 on this Tuesday evening. The former Millwall and Barnet defender Danny Sender has been...